The Decorated General. Opening scene, September 1945. The rain hammered against the windows of Supreme Headquarters Allied Expeditionary Force in Frankfurt, Germany. Outside, the bombed-out cityscape stretched gray and desolate under heavy clouds. Inside the converted administrative building, Lieutenant Colonel James Mitchell sat at his metal desk, sorting through classified reports with methodical precision. At 34, Mitchell had served under General George S. Patton Jr. for 2 years, first as a junior intelligence officer and now as a liaison between 3rd Army Headquarters and SHAF. He'd witnessed Patton's brilliance firsthand, the lightning-fast armored advances across France, the relief of Bastogne, the crossing of the Rhine. But he'd also seen the general's volcanic temper, his reckless disregard for protocol, and his increasingly troubling statements. The war in Europe had ended 4 months ago. Victory should have brought relief, celebration, a return to normalcy. Instead, Mitchell felt a knot of anxiety tightening in his gut with each passing day. Colonel Mitchell. A young corporal appeared at his door, water dripping from his rain-soaked uniform. "Sir, you're requested at General Patton's headquarters immediately. The general wants to see you personally." Mitchell's jaw tightened. Personal summons from Patton were never good news. Did he say what this is about? "No, sir." But he seemed agitated. Mitchell grabbed his cap and jacket. The drive to Bad Nauheim, where Patton maintained his headquarters in a requisitioned spa hotel, would take 40 minutes through the rain-slicked streets. He dismissed his driver and took the wheel himself, needing the time to think. George Patton was a legend, a 4-star general who had led the Third Army to stunning victories, a warrior who believed in reincarnation and claimed to have fought in ancient battles. His pearl-handled revolvers and cavalryman's swagger made him instantly recognizable. But Patton was also a liability, increasingly out of step with the post-war reality. The previous month, Mitchell had been present when Patton made comments at a press conference comparing the Nazi Party to American political parties, suggesting denazification was going too far. The backlash had been immediate and fierce. General Eisenhower, Supreme Commander and Patton's longtime friend, had been forced to reprimand him publicly. As Mitchell drove through the ruined German countryside, past columns of displaced persons trudging through the rain and the skeletal remains of bombed factories, he wondered what new crisis awaited him. Patton's headquarters, evening. The Grand Hotel in Bad Nauheim had once hosted Europe's elite seeking the healing waters of the spa. Now it served as command center for the legendary Third Army. Mitchell was ushered through marble hallways lined with captured Nazi flags and battle maps showing Patton's campaign across Europe. General Patton stood at the window of his office, hands clasped behind his back, staring out at the rain. At 60 years old, he still cut an imposing figure in his immaculate uniform, every medal and ribbon perfectly aligned. His bulldog face was set in a scowl. "You wanted to see me, General?" Mitchell said, saluting crisply. Patton turned, his pale blue eyes intense and penetrating. "Mitchell. Close the door. What I'm about to tell you is not for general consumption." Mitchell's stomach dropped. He closed the door and stood at attention. Patton paced to his desk, which was covered with intelligence reports and reconnaissance photographs. "You know what they're doing, don't you? Eisenhower, Marshall, all of them. They're dismantling the Third Army. My Third Army. The finest fighting force ever assembled. Sir, the war is over. Demobilization is. The war isn't over." Patton's voice cracked like a whip. "That's what they don't understand. We're sending our boys home, shipping them back to factories and farms, while the real enemy consolidates power right under our noses." Mitchell had heard rumors that Patton had been making inflammatory statements about the Soviets, but he'd hoped they were exaggerated. "General, if you're referring to our Soviet allies." "Allies?" Patton laughed bitterly. He snatched up a photograph from his desk and thrust it at Mitchell. "Look at this. Soviet checkpoints in Berlin. Soviet-controlled zones in Poland, Czechoslovakia, Hungary. They're not liberators, Mitchell. They're conquerors." The photograph showed Soviet soldiers at a checkpoint in Berlin, their faces hard and watchful. Mitchell had seen similar scenes. The tension between American and Soviet forces was palpable, even in victory. "Sir, I understand your concerns about Soviet intentions, but—" "Concerns?" Patton's face flushed red. "I'm not concerned. I'm certain. We fought the wrong enemy, Mitchell. We should have gone to Berlin first, driven straight through, and then kept going to Moscow. We could have crushed the Red Army when we had the chance. Instead, Eisenhower held us back, let the Russians take Berlin, and now we're going to pay for that mistake for the next 50 years. Mitchell felt his blood run cold. This wasn't just controversial, it was potentially treasonous. The Soviet Union was still officially an ally. "General Patton, you can't say things like that. If this gets out." "If it gets out?" Patton slammed his fist on the desk. "I want it to get out. Someone needs to tell the truth. Roosevelt sold us out at Yalta, gave Stalin everything he wanted. Now Truman's following the same path. They're dismantling our military, our intelligence networks, acting like we can trust the Soviets to play nice." Mitchell chose his words carefully. "Sir, I've read the intelligence reports too. The Soviet actions in Eastern Europe are concerning. But we can't just attack a nation we've been allied with for 4 years. The American people wouldn't support it. The world wouldn't understand it." Patton's expression softened slightly, but his eyes remained fierce. "The American people don't know what I know. They don't see the patterns I see. You're an intelligence officer, Mitchell. You understand strategic thinking. The Soviets are positioning themselves for dominance in Europe. Every day we wait, they get stronger. Every soldier we send home, every tank we mothball, every intelligence asset we dismantle, it's all playing into Stalin's hands. What are you asking me to do, sir?" Patton walked to a wall map of Europe, Soviet-controlled territories marked in red. "I'm going to Washington next month. I'm going to tell the Joint Chiefs, the War Department, anyone who will listen. We need to maintain military readiness. We need to prepare for the next war, because it's coming whether we want it or not. General, with respect, after the Nazi Party comments and the press conference incident, do you really think I know what they think of me?" Patton whirled around. Old blood and guts has gone too far. Patton's finally lost his mind. "I've heard it all. But I'm right, Mitchell. History will prove I'm right." The conviction in Patton's voice was absolute. Mitchell had served under men who were wrong but certain, and men who were right but uncertain. Patton was different. He believed with every fiber of his being that he alone saw the future clearly. "Sir, what do you need from me?" Patton studied him for a long moment. "Eisenhower's relieving me of command of the Third Army. It's not official yet, but I know it's coming. They're going to give me some ceremonial position, put me out to pasture. Before that happens, I need you to compile everything, every Soviet violation of agreements, every aggressive action, every sign of their intentions. I need a comprehensive report. That will take weeks, sir. Maybe months. Then you'd better get started." Patton returned to the window, his voice dropping to almost a whisper. "I've spent my entire life preparing for war, Mitchell. I've studied every great military campaign in history. I know warfare in my bones. And I'm telling you, the next war will make this one look like a skirmish. It will be fought with weapons we can barely imagine. And if we're not prepared, if we don't act now, we'll lose everything we fought for." Mitchell stood silent, torn between duty and disbelief. Patton was asking him to compile evidence for what amounted to a call for war with the Soviet Union. It could destroy both their careers. It could be seen as insubordination, maybe worse. But Mitchell had also read the intelligence reports. He'd seen the Soviet actions in Poland, the arrests of democratic leaders, the establishment of puppet governments. He'd spoken with refugees fleeing west, their stories of Soviet brutality chillingly similar to what they'd fled from under Nazi occupation. "I'll prepare the report, sir." Patton nodded, not turning from the window. "Good man. Now get out of here." And Mitchell, this conversation never happened. Mitchell's quarters, late night. Mitchell sat at his small desk, a bottle of scotch and a stack of classified folders in front of him. The rain had finally stopped, leaving the night eerily quiet. He opened the first folder, Soviet Troop Movements in Poland, August 1945. His hands shook slightly as he began reading. Each page painted a darker picture. Soviet forces weren't withdrawing, they were consolidating. Pro-Soviet governments were being installed across Eastern Europe, not through democratic processes but through intimidation and force. A knock at his door startled him. He quickly covered the folders with a newspaper. "Come in." Captain Sarah Reynolds entered, her usually composed face lined with worry. Reynolds was a 31-year-old analyst from Chicago who worked in political intelligence. She'd been one of the first women to reach the rank of captain in military intelligence, earning her position through brilliance and determination rather than connections. "Jim, we need to talk." She closed the door behind her. "I heard you met with Patton today." Mitchell gestured to the chair opposite his desk. "News travels fast. Too fast. There are rumors, Jim. About what Patton's planning to say, about a report he's having compiled." She leaned forward, her dark eyes searching his face. "Tell me you're not involved in this." Mitchell and Sarah had worked together since D-Day, developing a mutual respect that had evolved into a cautious friendship. She was one of the few people whose judgment he truly trusted. "I can't discuss what the general and I talked about." "Damn it, Jim." Sarah's composure cracked. "Patton is walking into a buzzsaw. The press is already circling. Politicians in Washington are calling for his head. If he makes another inflammatory statement, if he calls for war with the Soviets, it won't just be his career that's destroyed. Everyone associated with him will go down too." Mitchell poured 2 glasses of scotch and slid one across to her. "What if he's right?" Sarah stared at him. "Right about what?" "About the Soviets. About the threat they pose." Mitchell pulled out one of the folders, opened it to show her a report about political arrests in Warsaw. "This is from 3 weeks ago. The Soviets arrested 15 members of the Polish Home Army, men who fought against the Nazis, Sarah. They're being called enemies of the state, traitors. The charges are fabricated." Sarah scanned the report, her expression growing grim. "I know. I've seen similar reports from Hungary, Czechoslovakia, Romania. It's concerning." "Concerning?" Mitchell let out a bitter laugh. "It's a systematic takeover. And we're doing nothing. We're not doing nothing. There are diplomatic channels, negotiations. Which accomplish nothing. Stalin makes promises and breaks them. We protest, they ignore us. Meanwhile, the Iron Curtain is falling, and we're acting like it's not happening." Sarah set down the report carefully. "So what's the alternative? We start another war. We just finished fighting the most devastating conflict in human history. Millions dead, Europe in ruins. And you want to start it all over again?" "I don't want war," Mitchell said quietly. "But I don't want to wake up in 5 years and realize we've been played for fools either." They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of the conversation settling over them like a heavy blanket. "What did Patton ask you to do?" Sarah finally asked. Mitchell hesitated, then decided she deserved the truth. "He wants a comprehensive intelligence report on Soviet activities and intentions. He's planning to take it to Washington, make his case to the War Department." "Jesus, Jim. That's career suicide." "Maybe. Or maybe it's the most important thing I'll ever do." Sarah finished her scotch in one swallow. "If you're going to do this, you need to be thorough. You need documentation that's bulletproof. Because when the backlash comes, and it will come, the only thing that might save you is being right. Will you help me? Sarah stood, walked to the door, then paused. I'll get you what I need from political intelligence. But Jim, be careful. Patton is a brilliant general, but he's also impulsive and politically tone-deaf. Don't let his certainty override your judgment. After she left, Mitchell returned to the reports, working through the night as rain began falling again, tapping against the windows like a warning. The brewing storm. SHAEF headquarters, Frankfurt, 1 week later. General Dwight D. Eisenhower sat behind his desk, reading glasses perched on his nose, studying the latest report from the political advisors. At 55, the Supreme Commander looked exhausted. The stress of managing the occupation of Germany, navigating the increasingly tense relationship with the Soviets, and dealing with mounting political pressure from Washington had taken its toll. Across from him sat Lieutenant General Walter Bedell Smith, his chief of staff, a man known for his organizational genius and ruthless efficiency. Smith's expression was grim. "It's confirmed, then?" Eisenhower asked without looking up from the report. "Yes, sir. Patton's been making inquiries about Soviet military capabilities, requesting intelligence assessments, having his staff compile reports on Soviet violations of agreements. He's not being subtle about it." Eisenhower removed his glasses and rubbed his eyes. George never was subtle. That's what made him such an effective field commander and such a disaster at everything else. "Sir, the press is already sniffing around. If they get wind that one of our most prominent generals is advocating for war with the Soviets, especially after the Nazi Party comments." "I know, Beetle. I know." Eisenhower stood and walked to the window, looking out at the rebuilt sections of Frankfurt where American and German workers labored side by side. "George Patton is probably the finest field commander I've ever seen. He saved our bacon at Bastogne. His drive across France was a masterpiece of armored warfare. But he doesn't understand politics. He doesn't understand diplomacy. And he sure as hell doesn't understand when to keep his mouth shut." Smith consulted his notes. "There's something else, sir. Colonel Mitchell, one of Patton's intelligence officers, has been spotted meeting with various intelligence analysts, requesting classified documents. There are rumors he's compiling some kind of dossier." "Mitchell?" Eisenhower frowned. "I know that name. Good officer, isn't he?" "Excellent, sir. Princeton graduate, top of his class at intelligence school. Speaks fluent German and passable Russian. He's been decorated twice for his work during the campaign. But he's loyal to Patton." Eisenhower turned back to his desk. "Get Mitchell in here. I want to talk to him personally. Quietly, no official summons. Just have someone suggest he stop by." "Yes, sir." "And General Patton?" A long silence filled the room. Eisenhower's friendship with Patton stretched back decades, to their days together at Fort Meade in the 1920s. They'd argued about tank warfare tactics, shared dreams of military glory, weathered the lean years between the wars. Patton had been a groomsman at Eisenhower's wedding. But friendship had limits, especially when the stakes were this high. "Schedule a meeting with George. Here, tomorrow morning. Tell him I want to discuss the future of the Third Army." That should bring him running. Mitchell's office, afternoon. Mitchell was deep in a Soviet intelligence assessment when Major David Walsh appeared at his door. Walsh was Eisenhower's aide-de-camp, a smooth Boston aristocrat who seemed more suited to a law firm than the military. "Colonel Mitchell. The general wonders if you might have time for an informal chat this afternoon. Nothing official, he's just interested in your perspective on a few matters." Mitchell's pulse quickened. An informal chat with the Supreme Commander was never informal. "Of course, Major. When?" "Now would be convenient, if you're available." As Mitchell followed Walsh through SHAEF headquarters, he mentally reviewed everything he'd been working on. Had someone leaked information about the report? Had Patton already made his move? Eisenhower's office was modest compared to Patton's Baroque headquarters. The Supreme Commander stood when Mitchell entered, gesturing to a comfortable chair near a small coffee table rather than the formal seating arrangement in front of his desk. "Colonel Mitchell, thank you for stopping by. Coffee?" "Yes, sir. Thank you." Eisenhower poured 2 cups himself, a deliberate gesture of informality. "I've been reading your personnel file. Impressive record. Princeton, wasn't it?" "Yes, sir. Class of '32. History major, I see. That's good. Too many officers don't appreciate the importance of historical perspective." Eisenhower settled into his chair with a slight grimace. His back had been bothering him lately. "I wanted to talk to you about General Patton." Mitchell kept his expression neutral. "Sir. George and I go back a long way. We've had our share of disagreements, but I've never questioned his courage or his commitment to this country. However, I am concerned about his judgment lately." Eisenhower studied Mitchell over his coffee cup. "You've been working closely with him. What's your assessment?" Mitchell chose his words carefully. "General Patton is frustrated, sir. He believes the strategic situation in Europe requires more attention than it's currently receiving." "The strategic situation regarding the Soviet Union, you mean?" "Yes, sir." Eisenhower set down his cup. "Colonel, I'm going to be frank with you. The relationship between the United States and the Soviet Union is complicated. Stalin is a dictator, a brutal one. The Soviet system is fundamentally opposed to everything we believe in. But they were our allies in defeating Nazi Germany. They suffered casualties that dwarf our own, 20 million dead, maybe more. Right now, the American people want peace. They want their sons and brothers home. They don't want another war." "I understand, sir. Do you?" "Because I'm not sure George does." Eisenhower leaned forward. "I've seen the intelligence reports too, Colonel. I know what the Soviets are doing in Eastern Europe. But starting a war that would likely involve atomic weapons, is not something we can undertake lightly. The consequences would be catastrophic." Mitchell felt the weight of the moment. He could agree, distance himself from Patton, protect his career. Or he could speak the truth as he saw it. "Sir, may I speak freely?" "Please do." "General Patton believes we're making a mistake by demobilizing so quickly and by not maintaining pressure on Soviet aggression. He thinks history will judge us harshly for allowing Stalin to consolidate control over Eastern Europe. Whether or not he's right about the solution, his assessment of Soviet intentions appears accurate based on the intelligence I've reviewed." Eisenhower's expression didn't change, but Mitchell saw a flicker of something. Was it respect, in the general's eyes? "And what do you think, Colonel? Setting aside General Patton's views, what's your personal assessment?" Mitchell took a breath. "I think we're facing a different kind of war, sir. Not one that will be fought with tanks and artillery, but with ideology, economics, and influence. The Soviets are positioning themselves for long-term competition with the West. Every concession we make, every inch we give, will be harder to take back later. But I also think an immediate military confrontation would be a disaster. We need a middle path, maintaining military strength while using diplomatic and economic pressure." Eisenhower nodded slowly. "That's a mature assessment, Colonel. More mature than what I'm hearing from your commanding officer." He stood, and Mitchell rose with him. "I'm going to tell you something in confidence. General Patton is going to be relieved of command of the 3rd Army. He'll be given a command position for the 15th Army, which is essentially an administrative role overseeing historical documentation. It's not a punishment, George's accomplishments are too significant for that, but it's a recognition that his skills are better suited to some roles than others." Mitchell felt his stomach sink. Patton would be crushed. "When will this happen, sir?" "Soon. Within the month. I wanted you to know because you're going to have a decision to make." You can continue working with General Patton in his new role, or you can accept a position here at SHAEF in strategic intelligence. Your talents are wasted doing Patton's political bidding, Mitchell. You're too smart for that. It was an offer and a warning, delivered with Eisenhower's characteristic blend of avuncular warmth and steel-hard authority. I appreciate the offer, sir. May I have time to consider it? Of course. But don't take too long. Things are moving quickly. Eisenhower extended his hand. Whatever you decide, I want you to know I respect your integrity. Just make sure you're following your own judgment, not someone else's vision of the future. Mitchell drove through the darkening countryside, his mind churning. The meeting with Eisenhower had been a masterclass in leadership, no threats, no ultimatums, just a clear presentation of reality and a genuine offer of advancement. But it also meant Patton's time was running out. He found the general in his office, reviewing maps of Soviet military dispositions. Patton looked up when Mitchell entered, and his expression brightened. Mitchell. Perfect timing. I've been looking at the Soviet order of battle in Poland. Their tank divisions are positioned for offensive operations, not defensive. Look at this. General, I need to tell you something. Eisenhower called me in today. Patton's enthusiasm dimmed. Did he now? And what did I want? Mitchell relayed the conversation, omitting only Eisenhower's offer of a new position. When he finished, Patton was silent for a long moment, staring at the maps. The 15th Army, Patton finally said, his voice flat. A paper command. They're putting me out to pasture. Sir. Don't try to sugarcoat it, Mitchell. I know what this means. Eisenhower's been my friend for 25 years, and now he's shoving me aside because I'm inconvenient. Because I tell the truth. General Patton, maybe this is an opportunity. You could write your memoirs, document your campaigns. I don't want to write memoirs. Patton slammed his hand on the desk. I'm a soldier, Mitchell. I'm meant to fight, to lead men in combat. That's what I do. That's all I know how to do. The raw pain in Patton's voice was startling. Mitchell had seen the general face enemy fire without flinching, had watched him command armies with absolute confidence. But this, the prospect of irrelevance, of being shelved, seemed to break something in him. Sir, you've accomplished more than most generals could dream of. Your place in history is secure. Patton looked at him with haunted eyes. History? I don't give a damn about history. I care about the future. And the future is going to be a disaster if we don't wake up and recognize the Soviet threat. Then maybe that's your new mission, sir. Not leading armies, but warning people. Writing, speaking, using your voice to sound the alarm. Patton walked to the window, his shoulders slumped in a way Mitchell had never seen. No one wants to hear warnings, Mitchell. They want victory parades and feel-good stories about how we defeated evil and made the world safe. They don't want to hear that we might have to do it all over again. A knock at the door interrupted them. A young lieutenant entered with a message. Sir, you have a telephone call from the War Department in Washington. It's urgent. Patton straightened, some of his usual bearing returning. Tell them I'll take it in 5 minutes. After the lieutenant left, Patton turned to Mitchell. How's that report coming? It's nearly complete, sir. Another week should do it. Make it 3 days. Things are moving faster than I expected. Patton's jaw set in a familiar expression of determination. If they're going to sideline me, I'm going to make damn sure I speak my piece first. I'm going to tell them exactly what I think about the Soviets, about our strategic mistakes, about the war we're going to face if we don't change course. And let the chips fall where they may. Mitchell felt a chill run through him. Patton was going to do something reckless, something that would create a political firestorm. And there was nothing anyone could do to stop him. Mitchell delivered the completed report to Patton's headquarters at dawn. It was a comprehensive document, over 200 pages, detailing Soviet violations of agreements, military dispositions, political actions in occupied territories, and intelligence assessments of Stalin's strategic intentions. Sarah Reynolds had helped him compile the political analysis, working late into the nights despite her reservations. Other analysts, some sympathetic to Patton's concerns, had quietly provided additional documentation. The report was thorough, professional, and damning. Patton read through it in his office while Mitchell waited. The general's expression grew increasingly animated as he turned the pages. "This is excellent work, Mitchell. Exactly what I needed." Patton closed the folder and stood. "I'm flying to Washington tomorrow. I'm going to present this to the War Department, to anyone who will listen. And I'm going to make sure the press knows about it too. Sir, going to the press with classified intelligence. The American people have a right to know what's happening. They have a right to know that while we're celebrating victory, Stalin is building an empire that will threaten us for generations." Mitchell saw the fire in Patton's eyes, the absolute conviction that he was right. There would be no talking him out of this. "General, if you do this, it will end your career. You know that, don't you?" Patton smiled, and it was the saddest smile Mitchell had ever seen. "My career ended the moment Eisenhower decided I was too much trouble to keep around. At least this way, I'll go out fighting for something that matters. Then let me come with you to Washington. You'll need someone to